Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Cleveland Heights Council Finance Committee meeting. It's March 23rd. It's 5 o'clock. I'd like to call roll. I'm the chair, Jim Posh. We have vice chair, Gail Larson.
Here.
We do not have Sarah Stone. We heard that she was going to be signing in. If I see she hits the website, we'll let her in. We have Mayor Petrus here. We have Councilmember Cohn, Councilmember Cobb, Councilmember Larson. We have Finance Director Joe Barninsky. We have Rochelle Caldwell, and we have Tiffany Ware with us today too. And we're going to go right into the agenda. We've got 30 minutes before the Administrative Services Committee meets. So let's talk about a department update, and we'll let our Finance Department lead that.
All right, well, the first thing I'll tackle is the audit. The audit has been released for 23. We're working on 24. We have a meeting to talk with the State Auditor's Office tomorrow about some key points that he wanted to discuss. But the 23 audit's been released and it's on the website.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate
You're welcome. As far as the financials.
Could I just ask
Sure.
a couple questions? I wanted to make sure that everybody knew I'd reached out to Director Brzezinski and asked him to make sure that audit results were up on the website. So they'll be under financial reports, under the mayor's section on the website.
In the finance department. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to put in finance department?
Okay. It's under finance.
Okay.
The previous ones were the ACFR that was previously done. 23, the final audit is posted.
Okay, so the CAFR will be in the finance department as well then when it's done. Or is CAFR done?
For 24.
For 23.
No, there will not be one. It's 130 pages for the note, the financial statement.
Mm-hmm.
A full-blown CAFR, what we used to call it, was not done for 23.
Oh, okay.
The
basic financial statements, but it gives you everything you need to know financially in 137 pages.
Okay.
I think what we'd like is a CAFR going forward, but we've got a lot of challenges trying to retroactively do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's your call. I doubt you'd want to tackle that.
Right.
Past ones.
We want to get up and walking before we run again.
Yeah.
I would also like to just mention that Councilmember DeWitt Foy has also joined us via Zoom.
Then the other question I have is, because there were some findings that are concerning, in 2022, we were cited for not having an asset inventory and the depreciation, all those things, and again in 2023. And then some purchase orders that were done and dated after the invoices and those kinds of findings that are listed in the report. Is it asking too much if we could get an update maybe in a couple months to tell us where you're at in terms of those findings? I'd really like to see that follow-up.
I could talk right now. As far as the fixed assets for the 23 audit, that has been accomplished. As far as the infrastructure for the 23 audit, that will not be accomplished because obviously they've already released the 23. I will tell you it will not be released for the 24 because we're trying to get 24 released. Basically, it is my understanding that previously the state said, do not worry about the infrastructure. Because let's face it, the only time you really zone in on the infrastructure is if we were going to sell the city of Cleveland Heights. And we know we're not going to sell the city of Cleveland Heights. Finance is working with Public Works. We're hoping to have it done by the 25 audit. But basically, it's all the roads in the city, all the sewer lines in the city, as well as all the stormwater lines in the city. And that's a huge task. Public Works has detailed records of everything they've done for the last 5 years. But prior to that, there's no knowledge. So we are in a process, once we accumulate what Public Works has, I could get it to the same fixed asset company that the city has used prior to give us a quote on coming up with those numbers. But a lot of it's going to be in the form of extrapolation You know, how many miles of sewer lines do you have? Well, we've got 70 miles of sewer lines, but we could account for a mile over the last 5 years of actual work we did. Well, then we have to go and say, well, how old do we estimate the other sewer lines being? And it's going to be an extrapolation. Now, the good news is over time, and it will not be 100% accurate, but in 50 years of following the program, the old extrapolated items will be coming off and the new actual numbers will be coming on.
Yeah.
But I cannot get a appraisal firm to give us anything until we get the information from Public Works, which they are working on providing us. So then that recommendation will go off. As far as the POs, and you guys don't know this because you're not with us on a day-to-day or hour-by-hour basis, every department in this city will tell you how I've been going crazy on POs being done after the fact.
Thank you. Thank you.
Every department. We will not do that. You know, it's just simply not going to occur.
Thank you.
Because it's not that hard to do a purchase rec and then get it turned in a purchase order and then the invoice come in after the date.
Director, I'd like to acknowledge that Councilmember Stone is on the call. So, oh, go ahead.
Just two quick questions. One is, I'm not sure how the distribution of the audit was made via email, but I did not receive it until Vice President Larson just sent it to me.
Well, that's odd because normally the state auditor's office releases it to every. Let me check with the state auditor's office. And forgive me, but you're new to council.
Yes, starting in January. And so I wonder.
They probably, did you get it, sir?
Oh, I've been on a while. So
No,
yes,
but I mean, you
did,
got
yes.
it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody updated the state to the new members that are on,
Okay,
which is probably why it occurred that way.
that's fine. So just flagging that.
Yep.
And then secondly, just looking at the management letter, it talked about multi-factor authentication. Is that something that's
In the process. IT is working on that right now. I mean, it's something normally that every city is going to need if they want what's called cyber insurance. It's a no-brainer. You know, you could have your password on your computer and they still can't get in because they don't have your cell phone.
right?
They're working. He's rolling it out department by department. He hasn't hit all departments.
And this director precedes you, but I remember back when Danny Williams was the city administrator, he made an announcement that the city was moving towards multi-factor authentication. And I think that was fall of 2024.
And unfortunately, that work did not commence until I became mayor.
Good to know. Okay,
And he was moving just at a really slow pace.
seemingly.
But
Okay, thank you. I'll continue.
yes,
to
we're
work.
on top of it.
So do you think when do you think we'll get the 2024s done? Because we need to also work toward getting the 2025s done. There's this whole issue of having a bond rating in order to borrow possibly for Cumberland Pool or finding a funding source or just using it as a backstop for a funding source. So we all know it's urgent but you guys.
We should have our everything done for the 24 within what?
Probably a week or so, yeah.
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 And then I'll be pushing hard our financial people, and then of course with the state to have it all buttoned up. But that same comment, like I said, will be in the 24.
Well, are you able to go simultaneously after you do the 24, immediately submit the 2025, at least so they can do sort of like the gap conversion and stuff?
They have some of the 25 info that they're working on right now as a way not to finalize of the 24. We will be up and current. 25 will be done on a normal cycle before the first half of the year is complete.
But that would be wonderful.
Right.
I don't think the
See,
city's
but the
seen
problem
it in
is-
a long time.
I also don't want to hold stuff up because the infrastructure, yes, it looks from the state auditors as doom and gloom. It's really not. It's just, we know where our roads are. You know, we know where nobody's stealing our sewer or our stormwater.
If they want it at this point.
They can have it, right?
They can take the sewers.
They can start with Severn Circle, take it.
And the $500 million bill that comes with it.
But no, I can't make a promise because I don't know when we'll be able to get that appraisal up and running because it'll depend on their workload. I called a couple other appraisal places for that, and it really shocked me. It was almost like they didn't want to do the work. So we went back to the one that put the first half of the stuff together, and she's more than willing to give us a quote.
Okay.
So when we get the quote, we'll get that process going, but we will continue with our financials because even going to Moody's to get our rating back, it's easy to explain the infrastructure.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. I think we should move on. Can we talk about the financial statements?
Gervais, you want to kick it off and I can fill in?
Absolutely. So if we look at let's go to page 4. So February, the cash balance, that always will stay the same for the 2026 amount. That was what we ended 2025 with. So we had a cash balance of about 91.9 million. Our revenue was about 13.7 million. Our expenditures were at 16.7 million, which left us with a cash balance of 88.9 million. We have about 23 million open encumbrances, which leaves us with an unencumbered fund balance of about 66,000, and this is for all funds.
And just if I could jump in, I know there's the desire, we like to compare the 26 compared to the 25. But without the first half settlement in it on property taxes, which for this city represents, off the top of my head, about 11 million in the general fund alone, there's timing issues when you're talking about with advances. They don't come in as regular from year to year. Also, income tax, until the income tax deadline passes and you're into the May timeframe, is where you get a good grip on where you're truly going to be with income tax. Right now, we're pretty confident and solid through February, but it'll be May before you get a really good number. The good news is May's far enough away from the end of the year that if we have to make some kind of change, we have plenty of time before we hit a wall.
I think that's good advice. But I think what would be helpful to know is if you just sort of see any kind of leading indicators that might be alarming. So for example, if you get a payment in and it's much lower than you think it is. Or higher. I mean, staff has usually done a really great job, letting us know those kinds of things.
I've got a call in right now to our liaison from Rita to see if he's seen anything from his side. It's the same gentleman that I worked at in a previous life, so I know him really well. So I'm going to double check with him as far as the income tax is concerned. And obviously, interest earnings are also down because of the rate cuts. Because of the short-term nature that Star Ohio does, when interest rates go up, Star's return goes up. And the money that we have with Fifth Third Securities is actually lower. But with Fifth Third Securities, we could go out farther years than what Star's able to invest in. So when interest rates start coming down from the Fed level, our Star rate of return will start to drop pretty significantly, but our rates at Fifth Third Securities will increase. And just a couple of weeks ago, we moved $10 million out of Star to Fifth Third because the next Fed meeting, I believe, is June 17th. And it is highly suspected to be at least 0.25% decrease in the Fed rate. Sorry, go ahead.
And also just quickly noting that our capital compared to last year is down, and this has to do with the ARPA spending.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And check reconciliation reports are looking good.
Yes,
Reconciliation.
yes, so we're reconciled up through the end of January. So we've caught
You're getting
quite a
caught.
while, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And lastly, looking at the general fund, our fund balance beginning 22.6 million. Our revenue year to date for February is about 9 million. Our expenditures are 10 million with open encumbrances of about 5.7 million. So we're just a little bit down with our fund balance compared to last year. Looking at some of the expenditures, our capital is up just slightly, and that is due to the IT upgrades.
Anybody have any questions?
Do you have a sense of like open FTE positions and how that is, I guess, affecting these numbers versus who we're looking to hire for open
Yeah,
positions?
so we are actively looking at the open positions, and it's my intention tomorrow to implement a hiring freeze. Is there anything more that Joe or Michael?
No, I mean, I don't have a specific number off the top of my head because that fluctuates, you know, depending on when HR gives that to us, what the number is. But like the mayor said, every position that we're looking at will be looked at it as on a case-by-case basis. And it's a necessity versus, oh, I had this open 8 months ago and I'm getting around to fill it now.
Right.
And we're going to be looking at that way on other capital expenditures the same way.
Yeah, and the reason I was asking is that could give us more certainty around savings versus what
Absolutely.
we have to spend. Okay, thank you.
Let me just ask, a hiring freeze. So are we not gonna replace people who are we gonna get an HR director?
So certainly we're
Okay.
getting an HR
Okay.
director.
Okay.
But for the time being, with a number of large unexpected expenses coming up and with us still trying to understand where resources need to be aligned with needs, felt that it would be best if we put this temporary hiring freeze in so that every position goes through our office for approval along with vehicle purchase.
So the reason I get, what I'm not getting is, where's the line? So deputy clerk, is that frozen?
Well, that's your decision.
Okay.
That's not within the purview of the administration, but those positions within the administration will want to make sure that there is a real current need for that position before going ahead, because, you know, if we decide that it's not necessary, that, you know, is a good opportunity for savings and certainty.
If a housing inspector left, would we replace them?
Everything's on a case-by-case basis. And so if it's the case that that is needed, then certainly we want to move forward with it.
Okay, all right, just.
Any other questions about this before we move on to the next item? If it's okay, I'd like to jump to the fund review item number 4, and just to see how long that's going to take before we go into item number 3. Because I know we've got 10 minutes before the admin services committee needs to do their thing.
I mean, basically, we included the general fund and all special revenue funds,
Okay.
which are the 200 funds. We listed the main source of revenue that comes into each of the funds. We put together what the unencumbered balance was, the 26 revenue projections, the 26 expenditures, where we look to stay at be at the end of the year. And obviously, the first fund is the general fund, which is the main fund of the city. The second fund, budget stabilization fund. Some cities call it the city's rainy day fund, but basically money has been transferred there, and as of right now for 26, we have no listed revenue or expenses obviously coming out of it.
Can I ask a question for
Sure.
for the next meeting? Can you just, out of curiosity, let us know the last time we put money in that fund?
Sure.
In this fund,
Yeah, 102.
we transfer money in.
I want to say 25, right?
Yeah, we transfer money into this fund at the end of the year. 25.
Okay. And it has like a cool $2 million balance then?
yes.
Okay. I have my answer. Thank you.
Next fund, street construction, otherwise known as SCMR, street construction maintenance repair. The major forms of revenue are gasoline tax and motor vehicle license tax that come into that fund. And as you can see for 26, there's a huge discrepancy on budgeted revenues versus budgeted expense, but it's my understanding that the revenue budgeted is the revenue that is anticipated to come in. But under expenses, there was a certain dollar amount for road construction, and council upped it by like $2 or $3 million. So that's why the discrepancy is expenses. But we still are ending up with a significantly positive fund balance.
I think the concern was at the time, and this sort of predates the existing mayor, but under the former mayor, we were advised we needed to spend about $6 million a year just to keep our roads at a normal. And when that funding level was projected at less than that, the council members who went through, the council members that were part of council that did the budget last year, just wanted to make sure that that was properly funded with the expectation that everybody would work together, administration and council, for 2027 to make sure we had enough monies.
The $6 million number that you referenced, you said is what's needed for annual?
That's
So, in talking with Dan Horgan, the former city administrator, he spoke with an engineer who estimated that we needed to invest something like $6 million for each of the next 3 years to begin to get caught up. And so that's, I think, what we were aiming to achieve this year.
It's just catching up.
Well, but then once you maintain it, it'll be a much lower number, but it'll be a much more consistent number.
Yes.
I think there needs to be a lot of work to try to figure out what that real number is and the level of investment that's necessary on it. I think we were just feeling that after what we've seen over the last few years, we just needed to throw some money at this.
Sure.
Just a question on this fund. Is it possible to use this fund for capital expenses that go towards repairing the streets, or is it for?
It does.
It does.
I mean, that's why you see the jump in expenditures. That is for the street program.
Well,
Are you asking what's the difference between maintenance and resurfacing?
specifically, I'm thinking, I just saw something a month ago about Akron has this hot asphalt, one person truck, but it's like $300,000 per truck. So my question is this the fund where that type of capital expense comes out of, or is that a separate fund where such?
Well, it certainly could come out of this fund and potentially could come out of the 402 capital fund for that. But I believe the city does have a way to do some hot patching with a roller and a hot box. I'm not familiar with the Akron truck, but a hot box will cost maybe $20,000.
We just resolved
Just
it.
that, right. Anyway, I was just curious
Yeah.
where those expenses sit in terms of how the total fund
Right.
just looked at. Thank you.
On the next page, a fund called Foundation Grants. I've got to do research on that fund. No money is expected to come in or be spent in 26.
So when you say no research, and I see there's a couple the next two are sort of that way too, where there's no budget and no revenues. You know, one of your goals is to try to clean up some of the number of funds.
Mhm.
And I think this little exercise is just trying to get us to be more acquainted with what these are individually. We never really discussed these as council, as
Right.
Ivan Council.
On the foundation grants one, it strikes me as odd that we would have so much money sitting in there that wouldn't have had to have been spent because of an agreement with the foundation. So I'm curious if we can understand if that money is supposed to be
I'm gonna try to
directed
go back and
Yeah.
see how the money came in and how the money went out.
and if we can repurpose that for a similar use, but yeah.
Right. That's the same situation for the First Suburbs Consortium 203 fund.
Yep.
Much smaller dollar amount. The next one for the 205 fund, there's no necessitated dedicated funding for the fund. So monies that have gone into the fund in the past, I would assume probably came from the general fund. For the life of me, I don't know why we would stick it there versus the Capital 402 fund. But I'm gonna try to see if I can find any research on this fund. And if not, use it as one of the funds potentially to close.
So within just the few minutes that we have left, can you explain the procedure on getting the monies out of these funds and either putting them in the general fund or find another home for these
It would
funds?
take a court order from the Court of Common Pleas. It wouldn't be hard. They'll grant it. I mean, because let's face it, a common pleas judge, it's just the procedure and method that's used through state law. But they're not experts on any of these funds. If you go to them and you go through the process, they will allow that to occur.
Can you transfer the money out of those funds before you get that approval, or do you have to wait until?
No,
You have to wait.
I don't want to go to jail.
So that's what I'm asking.
Right.
If that's a part of the
Yeah,
process.
no. I will wait until I get that court order.
Yeah.
Because worst case, yes, you could do it. No, you're not going to go to jail. But then I don't need the auditors to come in and say you transferred it before you had the approval.
Right.
So going back, for example, on the rainy day fund, so we put money in that rainy day fund, it's got 2 million in it right now. If you really need to use it for a rainy day, we are able to move that back to the
No,
general
I
fund.
wouldn't necessarily move it. I would come down and do an appropriation request. And council, if they saw fit, would grant the appropriation and then we could spend it.
But in that use, we don't need a common pleas, judge to.
No, because we could use that fund. In the other ones, I'm actually physically gonna try to take that money, stick it back into the general fund probably, and close the fund
Close.
down.
Got it, okay.
Here, a rainy day, God forbid, a small little tornado comes through. It's gonna cost $200,000 to get a roof fixed. We could come to council, hey, we'd like to appropriate $200,000 out of this fund to do this. Council could say you grant the appropriation and we could spend it.
So we have a really tight agenda. It's on the verge of being 5:30. We've got another super important meeting that's about to happen in the administrative services. We've got another agenda item. Is there anything else that we need to discuss in this particular meeting? Anything that?
No,
we
just
need to
go
know?
through the rest of the funds. If anybody has questions, feel free to contact me. I'll get you answered.
I'll make
Thank you for the
sure-
work. Thank you.
I'll make sure we go over this, and it's on the agenda item where we have like time for a real meeting. Either
Yeah,
next
we
month
hit
or
most
maybe
of the important funds. The rest are gonna be a lot of research to close down.
That sounds wonderful. Okay, in that case, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much.
Have a great night.